Close your eyes, relax, and let the sound of a quiet river carry your thoughts far away from the busy world. Imagine the first pale light of morning resting gently over the Nile. The sky is still soft with fading stars, and the air is cool enough that every slow breath feels fresh before the day's warmth begins to settle over the land. Nothing rushes here. Nothing demands attention. The world awakens little by little, just as it has done for countless generations. This is a place where ordinary work shapes every hour. Not great monuments, not famous rulers, but patient hands. Hands that sweep dusty floors. Hands that grind grain into flour. Hands that gather reeds along quiet riverbanks. Hands that twist simple plant fibers into long, dependable rope. Tonight, we spend our time beside those quiet workers. Their labor is not hurried. It follows the rhythm of daylight, seasons, and steady breathing. It is work that asks for patience instead of strength alone. One strand after another. One careful twist after another. Hour after hour. The village is still wrapped in gentle silence. Mud brick homes stand close together, their flat roofs catching the first light. The walls hold the coolness of the night, offering comfort before the afternoon heat arrives. Small cooking fires are only beginning to wake, sending thin lines of smoke upward into the still morning air. Somewhere nearby, a rooster calls only once before becoming quiet again. A woman opens a simple wooden door and steps into the narrow street. Her sandals press softly against packed earth that has been walked smooth by many feet over many years. She carries an empty woven basket beneath one arm. She walks without hurry because there is no reason to rush. The day is long. There will be many hours for work. Farther down the lane, an old man sits outside his home on a low stool. His hands rest on his knees while he watches the sky slowly brighten. He has spent most of his life making useful things from the plants that grow beside the Nile. Mats for sleeping. Baskets for carrying grain. Cord for tying bundles of reeds. Thick rope for boats and workshops. His fingers no longer move as quickly as they once did. Small lines cover the backs of his hands. His knuckles are larger than they were in his youth. Yet every movement still carries quiet confidence. His body remembers thousands of mornings that looked almost exactly like this one. Soon another worker joins him. The younger man offers only a small nod. There is little need for conversation before sunrise. Both understand the day's task without speaking very much. They lift their empty baskets and begin walking together toward the river. The village slowly disappears behind them. Ahead lies a landscape that has changed very little through the centuries. Palm trees stand along the riverbank. Tall grasses sway gently whenever a light breeze passes through them. Birds skim low over the water before settling among thick clusters of reeds. The Nile itself moves with remarkable calm. Its surface reflects pale shades of blue and gold. Small ripples spread outward whenever a fish rises near the surface. Tiny boats drift quietly, tied to simple wooden posts waiting for fishermen who will soon begin another ordinary day. The workers stop beside a wide patch of tall plants growing close to the water. Some are flax. Some are papyrus. Others are strong river grasses whose long fibers can be dried and twisted into useful cord. Different villages use different plants depending on the season and what grows best nearby. Every experienced worker understands which stems will make soft rope and which will create stronger lines for heavier work. The old man kneels carefully. He studies each cluster before cutting it. Not every plant is ready. Some are too young. Their fibers will break too easily. Some have already become too dry while standing in the field. Their fibers may split before they can be prepared. The best stems stand somewhere between youth and age. Strong, flexible, and full of long fibers hidden beneath their outer skin. His knife is simple. Its blade has been sharpened many times. The wooden handle is smooth from years of use. Each careful cut produces a quiet sound, almost hidden beneath the whisper of moving water. Soon both baskets begin filling. Long green stalks lie neatly together. Nothing is thrown carelessly. Each bundle is arranged so the stems remain straight. Bent fibers become weaker later. Every small choice made now will affect the finished rope many days from now. Morning sunlight slowly spreads across the river. The air grows slightly warmer. Other workers appear along the shoreline carrying similar baskets. Some greet each other with soft smiles. Others simply continue gathering in peaceful silence. No one seems impatient. There is enough work for everyone. There always is. As the baskets grow heavier, the workers carry them back toward the village. Their pace remains slow. The weight presses gently against tired shoulders, but nobody complains. This has always been part of life. Their parents carried similar baskets. Their grandparents did the same before them. The narrow streets are livelier now. Children chase each other between houses before being called back by parents preparing breakfast. The smell of baking bread fills the warm air. Stone ovens glow with gentle heat. Women shape soft dough into flat rounds before placing them against hot surfaces where they slowly brown. Nearby, someone grinds grain between heavy stones. The steady scraping sound blends naturally with distant voices and quiet footsteps. Everything feels connected. Every task supports another. Bread feeds the rope makers. Rope helps fishermen. Fish feed families. Farmers use rope to guide animals. Builders use rope to lift stone. Merchants use rope to secure goods. Even the smallest piece of cord may become important before the day is over. The workers reach a shaded courtyard surrounded by low walls. This is where much of today's work will happen. The baskets are gently emptied. Long green stems cover the ground. Now begins another kind of labor. Not cutting. Not carrying. Preparing. The old man sits cross-legged upon a woven mat. His hands begin sorting every stem according to thickness. Thin ones form one pile. Thicker stems form another. Broken pieces are placed aside. Nothing useful is wasted. Even short fibers may become cord for smaller household tasks. The younger worker watches closely. Although he has learned this craft for many years, every season teaches something new. Plants change. Weather changes. Water levels rise and fall. Good craftsmen pay attention. The outer layers of the stems must now be loosened. Some are gently crushed beneath smooth wooden tools. Others are soaked briefly in shallow pools of water. This softens the outer skin and allows the useful fibers hidden inside to separate more easily. The work asks for patience. Too much force damages the fibers. Too little leaves them trapped beneath the outer layer. Every movement is measured. Every handful receives careful attention. Hours pass almost unnoticed. The sun climbs higher. Warm light reaches across the courtyard floor. Small patches of shade slowly shift along the walls. Nobody watches the sky very often. The workers know time through light, through habit, through the feeling inside their bodies. A child enters carrying a clay jar filled with cool river water. Everyone pauses. They drink slowly. The water tastes fresh. A few drops roll down dusty hands before disappearing into dry earth. The pause lasts only a short while. Soon fingers return to their steady work. fibers begin appearing in soft pale bundles. They no longer resemble tall river plants. Instead they look almost like long strands of hair gathered together. They are surprisingly soft, flexible, smooth. Yet hidden inside them lies remarkable strength. The old man lifts one bundle toward the sunlight. He smiles very slightly. Good fibers. Long fibers. These will make strong rope. Around the courtyard more workers have arrived. Some are elderly women whose fingers move with incredible speed despite their age. Some are young teenagers still learning. Some are middle-aged craftsmen whose hands rarely hesitate. Every worker uses slightly different movements. Yet all produce nearly the same result. Generations have slowly refined these methods until they feel almost natural. Conversation comes quietly. Nobody raises a voice. Words drift gently between workers. Someone speaks about river levels. Another wonders whether this year's flax will be softer than last year's. Someone else mentions a neighbor recovering from illness. The subjects are ordinary. The pace of speaking matches the pace of working. No one interrupts often. Silence is welcome here. It settles comfortably among them like another companion sharing the morning. By midday the courtyard has changed. Where green stalks once covered the ground, pale fibers now rest in neat bundles. The discarded plant skins lie off to one side. Some may later become fuel for cooking fires. Others will simply return to the earth. Nothing disappears without purpose. The sun now shines almost directly overhead. Heat settles across every surface. Stone walls radiate warmth. Dust feels dry beneath bare feet. Even the breeze becomes quieter. This is the hour when bodies grow tired. Sweat forms along foreheads. Clothing clings slightly to sun-warmed skin. Hands continue moving, though perhaps just a little more slowly than before. Someone announces that bread is ready. Simple loaves are placed upon woven mats. Alongside them sit onions, dried fish, dates, and small bowls of thick bean stew. The meal is humble. Nobody expects luxury. Food is fuel for another afternoon of careful work. The workers eat together beneath strips of woven shade. Flies buzz lazily nearby. Children laugh somewhere beyond the courtyard walls. A donkey brays once before becoming silent again. The old man tears off a piece of bread. He chews slowly while watching the bundles of prepared fibers waiting nearby. There is satisfaction in seeing honest work ready for its next stage. No monument bears his name. No scribe records every rope he has made. Yet his work quietly supports hundreds of other lives. After eating, everyone rests. Only for a little while. Some lean against mud brick walls. Others stretch out on woven reed mats. Eyes close. The afternoon heat encourages stillness. Even birds seem quieter now. The village breathes more slowly. Eventually someone stands. Without needing to speak, the others follow. Work begins again. The bundles of fibers are carried into deeper shade where twisting can begin. This is where patience matters most. Each handful must first be combed gently. Simple wooden combs separate tangled strands. Tiny pieces of dry plant are removed. Loose fragments fall softly onto the floor. The cleaner the fibers become, the smoother the finished rope will feel. The younger worker gathers several long strands together. He rolls them carefully against his thigh. His palm moves downward in one smooth motion. The fibers begin turning naturally. Not tightly. Only enough to hold together. Again. And again. Every pass strengthens the strand. The old man watches for only a moment before returning to his own work. He no longer needs to give many instructions. Learning happens mostly through observation. Young hands slowly copy older hands until movements become instinct. Hours continue slipping quietly past. No bells ring. No clocks measure the afternoon. Only sunlight crossing the courtyard reminds anyone that time is moving. Several finished cords now lie beside the workers. Each is still thin. Later, several cords will themselves be twisted together to create thicker rope. Strength grows from many smaller parts joining patiently together. It is a quiet lesson repeated throughout the village. Families. Communities. Bundles of grain. Rows of bricks. Lengths of rope. Many small pieces become stronger together than alone. A breeze finally returns near evening. It carries the scent of wet river water mixed with warm earth. The temperature softens. Long shadows begin stretching across the ground. The hardest heat of the day slowly loosens its grip. The workers straighten their backs. Some quietly massage sore wrists. Others flex tired fingers before continuing. Making rope asks little from sudden bursts of strength. Instead it asks for endurance. The same careful movement repeated hundreds, then thousands of times. Day after day. Season after season. Year after year. It is work that slowly shapes the body. Strong forearms. Flexible fingers. Patient shoulders. Eyes trained to notice tiny imperfections. The younger worker examines one finished cord. He feels a rough place. Without frustration he untwists several inches and begins again. Better to lose a few moments now than create weak rope that may fail later. Nobody scolds him. Every craftsman has done the same. Good work often begins with quiet correction. The old man nods with gentle approval. Outside the courtyard, evening settles softly across the village. Fishermen return with modest catches. Children carry small bundles of firewood. Goats wander back towards simple shelters. The smell of evening meals slowly fills the cooling air. Still the rope makers continue. Only a little longer. One more bundle. One more strand. One more careful twist. Their hands never hurry, because hurried rope remembers every careless movement. Strong rope remembers patience instead. Evening settles so gently that almost no one notices the exact moment when the day begins to let go of its warmth. The shadows simply become longer. The bright gold of the afternoon softens into pale ember. The air, which only a short time ago rested heavily upon every shoulder, now carries a faint coolness drifting from the Nile. It slips quietly through the narrow streets, around mud brick walls, beneath woven reed roofs, and into the open courtyard where the rope makers still sit together. The courtyard has become quieter than it was in the morning. There are fewer voices now. Many workers have returned to their homes to prepare the evening meal with their families. Others have gone to feed animals, sweep floors, or collect water before darkness settles across the village. Yet a small group remains, content to finish another length of rope before the light fades completely. The old craftsman turns another bundle of prepared fibers over in his lap. His fingers know exactly how much pressure to use. They no longer think about each movement. The work has become part of his breathing. His thumb presses gently against the growing strand while his palm rolls the fibers downward along his thigh. The motion is smooth and unbroken. When his hand reaches his knee, it returns quietly to the top, ready to begin again. There is no hurry. The rope grows one small twist at a time. Nearby, the younger worker copies the same motion. His hands are steady now. When he first began learning, the fibers often slipped apart before they could hold together. Sometimes he twisted too tightly, making the rope stiff and uneven. Other times he twisted too loosely, leaving weak places that would never carry much weight. Those mistakes came slowly. They disappeared slowly as well. No one expected quick mastery. The craft was measured in seasons rather than days. The younger worker remembers his first year beside the river. He had been eager to help. He wanted his hands to move as quickly as those of the older craftsmen. He watched them with admiration, wondering how such simple movements could produce something so strong. The old man had only smiled. He had placed a handful of fibers into the boy's hands and said very little. The fibers themselves would become the teacher. And they had. They taught patience. They taught gentleness. They taught that strength often begins with softness. As the last sunlight reaches across the courtyard, the finished cords are laid neatly beside one another. Some are no thicker than a finger. Others are slightly wider. Tomorrow, several of these cords will be joined together to make heavier rope. The process always happens in stages. Nothing is forced. Nothing is skipped. Every step prepares quietly for the next. A woman enters the courtyard carrying a clay lamp. The small flame dances gently behind its simple wick. She places the lamp upon a smooth stone near the workers before returning home without saying very much. The gift needs no explanation. There is still enough light to work. Soon there will not be. The little flame waits patiently. The sky slowly changes above them. Soft shades of orange give way to pale purple. Then deeper blue. The first evening stars appear one after another, almost unnoticed unless someone happens to look upward. The old man glances toward the sky only once. He judges how much daylight remains. Perhaps another hour. Perhaps a little less. That is enough. He reaches for another bundle. Around the village, evening meals have begun. The smell of fresh bread drifts through the air. Someone nearby stirs lentils inside a clay pot over a small cooking fire. The gentle crackle of dry wood mixes with distant conversation. Children laugh as they chase each other through narrow lanes before tired parents call them inside. Dogs settle near doorways. Donkeys stand quietly after long days of carrying heavy loads. Goats gather close together within simple pens made from wooden poles and woven branches. The whole village begins slowing toward rest. Yet the rope makers continue their peaceful rhythm. Roll. Twist. Smooth. Roll again. The movements become almost like breathing. The younger worker notices something. One bundle of fibers feels different. It is slightly rougher than the others. He pauses. He studies the strands beneath the growing darkness. Perhaps these plants stood too long beneath the sun before they were harvested. Perhaps they dried more quickly because they grew upon higher ground. He cannot know for certain. Still, the fibers deserve careful attention. He separates them slowly. The roughest strands are placed aside. The smoother ones remain. Even imperfect bundles often contain useful fibers. Very little is wasted. The old craftsman nods approvingly. Careful eyes make dependable rope. A craftsman who ignores small flaws may never notice the larger ones until it is too late. Far beyond the village, the Nile continues its quiet journey toward the sea. Its waters have carried boats for longer than anyone living can remember. Fishing boats. Trading boats. Small ferries carrying farmers across the river. Large vessels bringing stone from distant quarries. Many of those boats depend upon rope. Rope holds sails. Rope secures cargo. Rope ties boats safely to wooden posts along the shore. When river winds become stronger, every careful twist made here inside this peaceful courtyard becomes important. A weak rope may snap. A strong rope quietly does its work without drawing attention. The workers understand this well. Their names may never travel beyond the village. Their rope certainly will. Some lengths may reach nearby farms. Others may find their way into temple workshops. Some may travel many days by boat before arriving in distant towns where strangers will use them without ever knowing who patiently made them. The thought does not trouble the old craftsman. Useful work speaks for itself. Recognition is unnecessary. The lamp flame grows brighter as darkness deepens. Its warm glow touches tired hands. Long shadows dance softly across the courtyard floor. Tiny insects circle lazily around the light. Occasionally one lands upon a worker's sleeve before lifting away again. No one seems bothered. Night belongs to many small creatures. The younger worker stretches his fingers. The joints ache gently. Not with sharp pain. More like the quiet reminder of many hours spent repeating the same motion. His wrists feel heavy. His shoulders carry the pleasant tiredness that follows honest labor. He knows tomorrow will ask for these same movements again. He does not resent it. The rhythm has become familiar. Predictable. Comforting. Across the courtyard sits an elderly woman whose hands never seem to stop moving. She has spent nearly 60 years preparing fibers. Her eyesight is not as sharp as it once was, yet her fingers still recognize every strand by touch alone. She smiles quietly as she works. Sometimes she hums a melody so softly that it almost disappears beneath the sounds of twisting fibers. The tune has no audience. Perhaps it came from her mother. Perhaps her grandmother sang it before her. Songs often travel through families as quietly as skills. No one writes them down. They simply remain alive in memory. The night air becomes cooler. One by one, workers begin placing completed cords into neat coils. Each coil is tied loosely with a short piece of scrap fiber. Tomorrow they will continue growing longer. Tonight they rest. Just like the hands that made them. The old craftsman finally sets aside his work. He rubs both palms together slowly. The skin is thick from decades of labor. Tiny lines cross every fingertip. Those lines hold traces of flax, papyrus, river reeds, dust, and sunlight gathered over many years. He pours a little water across his hands from a small clay jar. The coolness feels pleasant. Bits of plant fiber drift away. The younger worker washes his hands as well. The water becomes slightly cloudy before soaking into the thirsty ground beneath them. Nothing remains except clean hands and quiet satisfaction. The clay lamp is lifted carefully. The workers stand. Their knees straighten slowly after sitting for so many hours. They gather their finished bundles and place them safely inside a simple storage room where the night's moisture will not reach them. The room smells pleasantly of dried plants. Neatly stacked coils line the walls. Some are thin cords for household use. Others are thick ropes nearly as wide as a man's wrist. Every shelf tells the story of many patient days. No single rope was made quickly. Each carries countless small movements hidden inside its tightly twisted strands. The storage room is closed with a simple wooden door. Tomorrow morning it will open once again. Outside, the village now belongs to the night. Moonlight rests gently upon flat rooftops. The narrow streets seem wider without the bustle of daytime activity. Cooking fires burn lower now. Families sit together finishing the last of their evening meals. Some share quiet conversation. Others simply enjoy the cool air after the long afternoon heat. The old craftsman walks home along a familiar path. His sandals press softly into the dusty ground. He passes neighbors returning from the river with water jars balanced carefully upon their shoulders. A young mother rocks a sleepy child outside her doorway. An old dog lifts its head briefly before settling back down. Nothing feels hurried. Night encourages slower movements. At home, the old man enters through a low doorway. His wife has already placed bread, onions, and a small bowl of bean stew upon a woven mat. They eat together without many words. After so many years, silence has become another language between them. Comfort needs little explanation. The room is simple. Mud brick walls keep much of the day's heat outside. Bundles of dried herbs hang from wooden beams overhead. Clay jars stand neatly against one wall. A woven basket holds fresh bread covered with linen cloth. Everything has its place. Everything serves a purpose. After eating, the old man steps outside once more. He sits upon a low stool facing the quiet street. Above him stretches a sky filled with stars. Far from city lights that do not yet exist, the heavens seem endless. The bright band of countless distant stars reaches across the darkness like another river flowing silently overhead. He has watched this sky since childhood. The same stars looked down while he learned his first twisting motions. The same stars watched his parents gather fibers. The same stars will remain long after new generations take his place. The thought feels peaceful. Life moves slowly. So do the stars. From somewhere near the river comes the soft splash of water against wooden boats. The sound rises and fades. Then returns again. A gentle rhythm. Almost like breathing. The younger worker, now home with his own family, sits beside a small oil lamp. His youngest daughter climbs into his lap and gently touches his rough hands. She traces the calluses with one tiny finger. To her they seem unusual. To him they are simply part of life. She asks what he made today. He smiles. Rope, he answers softly. The child nods with quiet satisfaction, as though that single word explains everything. Perhaps it does. She has seen rope every day of her life. It hangs beside the family's doorway. It ties bundles of firewood. It secures baskets upon donkeys. It mends fishing nets. It closes grain sacks. Rope is so common that few people stop to wonder where it begins. Yet every useful length once started as a handful of soft fibers gathered beside the Nile under the gentle light of morning. The child grows sleepy. Her head rests against her father's shoulder. The lamp flickers. Outside, the village becomes still. One by one, the remaining voices disappear into quiet homes. The day's work settles into memory. Tomorrow will arrive gently, just as today did. The river will continue flowing. The reeds will continue growing. The fibers will wait patiently within their green stems. And somewhere, before the first light touches the eastern sky, careful hands will once again walk toward the water, carrying empty baskets, ready to begin the same peaceful work that has quietly woven itself into the fabric of countless ordinary lives. Before the first bird greets the coming dawn, the village already rests beneath a blanket of quiet darkness. The air has become cool enough that the walls of the mud brick home slowly release the warmth they gathered during the long afternoon. A gentle breeze moves through the narrow lanes, carrying the scent of damp river reeds, dry earth, and the last faint traces of cooking fires that have settled into glowing embers. The night is not completely silent. It never truly is. Somewhere beyond the houses, water brushes softly against the side of a small fishing boat tied to a wooden post. A donkey shifts its weight inside a simple shelter, letting out a slow breath before becoming still again. Tiny insects sing patiently among the grasses near the riverbank. Their quiet voices rise and fall together like waves that no one can see. Inside one modest home, the old rope maker sleeps upon a woven reed mat spread across the smooth floor. A folded piece of linen supports his head. The room is simple. There are no grand decorations. A few clay jars stand neatly beside one wall. A woven basket rests beneath a low wooden shelf. Bundles of dried herbs hang from the ceiling beams, filling the room with a gentle earthy scent. The little oil lamp that burned through the evening has long since gone dark. Moonlight enters through a small opening high in the wall. It paints soft silver shapes across the floor before quietly moving as the hours pass. The old craftsman's breathing remains slow and even. Years of steady labor have taught his body when to rest. His hands, which spent the entire day twisting fibers into rope, now lie peacefully upon his chest. The fingers are slightly curved, as though they still remember the shape of the strands they held only a few hours before. Outside, the stars slowly travel across the heavens. The people sleeping beneath them do not measure time with clocks. They know it through habit, through birdsong, through light, through the coolness of morning air before sunrise. Eventually, somewhere in the darkness, a rooster calls. Only once. The sound drifts gently through the sleeping village. Another answers from farther away. The old craftsman opens his eyes. He does not rise immediately. There is no need. For a few quiet moments he simply listens. The breeze. The insects. The distant river. The familiar sounds have greeted nearly every morning of his life. They ask nothing of him except to notice them. His wife is already awake. She moves carefully so as not to disturb the peaceful stillness of the room. A clay jar is lifted. Water is poured into a small bowl. Bread baked the previous evening is uncovered from beneath a linen cloth. Its crust has become slightly firmer overnight, but it remains fresh enough for breakfast. The old man sits slowly. His back reminds him that another long day awaits. There is stiffness in his shoulders. A gentle ache rests inside his wrists. These small discomforts are familiar companions. They disappear gradually as the body begins moving. He steps outside. The eastern sky has only begun to pale. The stars nearest the horizon quietly fade. Above the village rooftops, tall palm trees stand motionless against the growing light. Neighbors emerge from their homes one after another. No one speaks loudly. Morning belongs to calm voices. A young mother sweeps dust away from her doorway using a simple bundle of reeds tied tightly together. Each careful stroke leaves faint patterns in the earth before fresh footprints slowly erase them. An elderly man leads two goats toward a nearby enclosure. Their hooves make soft tapping sounds against patches of stone. A fisherman walks toward the Nile carrying rolled fishing nets over one shoulder. His sandals leave familiar marks along the dusty path. Everyone has somewhere to be. No one rushes to arrive. The rope maker eats a small breakfast beside the doorway of his home. Fresh water. Flat bread. A handful of dates. A few slices of onion. Simple food has always begun his mornings. It fills the stomach without weighing down the body before work begins. The younger craftsman appears at the end of the lane. He smiles quietly. No greeting is necessary beyond a gentle nod. The two men have shared many mornings like this. Each understands the rhythm of the other's day. Together they lift their empty baskets. The woven reeds creak softly beneath the weight of nothing at all. Soon they will become heavy once more. The road toward the river feels familiar beneath their feet. Morning dew rests lightly upon patches of grass beside the path. The coolness lasts only a short while before the desert sun will claim it. Birds begin crossing the brightening sky. Some fly low above the water. Others settle among papyrus growing thick along the riverbank. The Nile welcomes another day with quiet patience. Its surface reflects soft pink clouds drifting overhead. Mist rises gently from the warmer water into the cooler morning air. Everything feels peaceful. Everything seems to move slowly. The workers pause before reaching the reeds. The old craftsman kneels and places one hand upon the damp soil. He feels its coolness. The river has been generous this season. The ground still holds enough moisture for healthy growth. Good plants begin with healthy earth. The younger man follows his example. He notices tiny footprints pressed into the mud. Perhaps a heron searched for fish during the night. Perhaps another small bird wandered through the reeds before sunrise. Nothing here belongs only to people. The river serves every living creature. The day's gathering begins. Each worker carries a small knife whose edge has been sharpened many times. The blades are modest. Useful rather than beautiful. A careful cut sends another long stem gently into waiting hands. The workers never pull the plants carelessly. A clean cut protects the remaining roots. Healthy roots will produce new growth. Next season depends upon today's patience. The baskets slowly begin filling. Morning sunlight slips through the tall reeds, painting long golden lines across the damp ground. Tiny droplets of water cling to the leaves. As workers move among them, the droplets fall quietly onto bare feet and worn sandals. The coolness is pleasant. It will not last long. Before midday the earth will become warm once more. Several women from a nearby village arrive carrying baskets of their own. Some gather flax. Others collect softer grasses used for weaving sleeping mats. Children accompany them, carefully carrying much smaller baskets. Their steps are slower. Their eyes are curious. One little boy stops to watch the rope maker. He notices how carefully each stem is chosen. After a moment, he kneels beside another cluster and begins examining it in the same thoughtful way. The old craftsman smiles. He remembers doing exactly the same thing many decades ago. Learning often begins without words. Children watch. Then imitate. Then slowly understand. The sun climbs a little higher. Birdsong grows livelier for a while before gradually quieting as the morning warms. The workers continue harvesting. They speak only occasionally. Conversation comes naturally between long stretches of peaceful silence. Someone mentions that the river has risen slightly since the last moon. Another says the papyrus seems especially tall this year. An elderly woman recalls a season many years ago when strong winds bent nearly every reed before harvest. Her memory carries no complaint. Only observation. Life beside the Nile has always required careful attention to weather. The river gives generously. The river also decides much. When the baskets can hold no more, the workers tie the stems into neat bundles using short lengths of leftover cord. The bundles balance comfortably across their shoulders. The return walk begins. Sunlight now reaches over the tops of the village walls. Smoke rises from dozens of breakfast fires. The smell of fresh bread drifts once again through the streets. Grinding stones sing their familiar song as grain becomes flour beneath steady hands. A potter sits outside his workshop shaping damp clay upon a slow-turning wheel. His hands, like those of the rope makers, move with patient confidence learned over many years. A carpenter opens the shutters of his small workshop. Wood shavings from yesterday still cover part of the floor. He sweeps them into neat piles before beginning another day. Across the lane, a woman repairs a woven basket whose handle has begun to loosen. She reaches for a thin cord made months earlier by rope makers whose names she may never know. She threads it carefully through the basket's frame. Within moments the handle feels strong once more. Useful work quietly supports other useful work, often without anyone noticing. The courtyard slowly fills with workers. Bundles are placed neatly upon woven mats. The old craftsman kneels and begins the familiar process once again. Sorting. Inspecting. Choosing. Each stem passes briefly through experienced hands. Some are immediately accepted. Others are placed into different piles according to thickness or flexibility. The younger worker notices how little waste remains after so many years of careful practice. Every piece seems to have a purpose. The thicker outer layers may become fuel. Short fibers may strengthen smaller cords. Even tiny fragments sometimes find new life inside simple household repairs. Nothing valuable disappears carelessly. The first stems are gently soaked inside shallow basins filled with river water. They rest quietly while the moisture softens their outer skin. Nearby, another group begins crushing previously soaked stalks beneath smooth wooden mallets. The sound is gentle. Tap. Pause. Tap again. The rhythm joins countless other quiet sounds filling the morning. Sandals crossing packed earth. Clay jars being lowered onto the ground. Children laughing beyond the courtyard walls. Birds calling from nearby rooftops. The scraping of grain stones. The distant splash of oars upon the Nile. Together they create the music of ordinary life. No single sound demands attention. Each blends naturally into the next. The old craftsman lifts one softened stalk. His thumbs press carefully along its length. The outer layer begins separating from the long pale fibers hidden inside. Slowly, patiently, the fibers emerge one by one. They glisten slightly while still damp. Sunlight catches them for just a moment before they are placed into growing bundles. The younger worker follows the same process. His hands have become more confident. He no longer needs to watch every movement closely. Instead, he begins noticing smaller details. Which stems came from wetter ground? Which plants received more sunlight? Which fibers feel smoother after soaking? Experience grows quietly, almost unnoticed. The elderly woman seated nearby continues working without interruption. Her fingers move with remarkable steadiness. She speaks softly to a young girl sitting beside her. The child asks why some fibers feel softer than others. The old woman smiles. She places two small bundles into the girl's hands. "Feel them," she whispers. The child closes her eyes. She rubs each bundle gently between her fingers. One feels silky. The other slightly rough. No long explanation follows. The lesson has already begun. The morning grows brighter. The courtyard becomes warm but not yet hot. Freshly prepared fibers begin covering woven mats laid carefully across the ground. They resemble pale streams flowing through the courtyard. The breeze lifts a few loose strands before gently setting them back down. The old craftsman pauses for a moment. He stretches his fingers. He looks across the courtyard. Many hands are working. Young hands. Old hands. Large hands. Small hands. Every pair moving with quiet purpose. Some prepare fibers. Some comb them smooth. Some begin the first gentle twisting. The work spreads across the courtyard like the branches of a single tree. Different tasks. One shared purpose. Soon another long day of patient craftsmanship will unfold, one careful strand at a time, beneath the warm Egyptian sun, beside the timeless river that continues to nourish both the plants and the people who have learned, through countless peaceful generations, that the strongest rope is never made in haste but always through many small moments of steady, unhurried hands. The morning continues to unfold with the same quiet confidence that has guided countless mornings before it. The sun climbs a little higher above the eastern horizon, sending warm light across the rooftops of the village. The shadows that stretched long across the courtyard at dawn slowly draw closer to the walls. Nothing about the change feels sudden. It happens so gently that only someone sitting still for many hours would notice the slow movement of light across the ground. The rope makers notice. Their work teaches them to notice many small things. They notice when the morning breeze becomes slightly warmer. They notice when the damp fibers begin to dry just enough to twist without breaking. They notice how the sunlight reaches one corner of the courtyard before another. These quiet observations become part of the craft. No written instruction teaches them. The fibers themselves offer the lesson. The old craftsman lifts another bundle that has rested in water since early morning. The stalks are darker now. Their outer skins have softened. He places several across a smooth flat stone and presses them gently with a rounded wooden tool polished by many years of use. The pressure is firm enough to loosen the fibers inside, but never harsh enough to crush them. A faint cracking sound rises from the stalk. Not loud. Just enough to tell experienced ears that the outer layer has begun to separate. The younger craftsman works beside him. He copies the same motion. His hands no longer tremble with uncertainty as they once did. Instead, they move with quiet confidence. Still, every now and then, he glances toward the old man. Not because he needs constant instruction. Simply because watching someone with many decades of experience always reveals another small detail. Today he notices something almost invisible. The old craftsman turns each stalk slightly before pressing it again. Only a small turn. Hardly more than the width of a finger. It allows the pressure to reach every side evenly. The younger man smiles to himself. Another lesson. A simple one. But one that will remain with him for the rest of his life. The softened stalks are carried to another mat. Now comes one of the slowest parts of the day's work. The fibers must be drawn carefully from inside the plant. The old craftsman begins at one end. His fingers gently separate a thin ribbon of fiber. Then another. Then another. Each strand comes free with patient encouragement rather than force. Sometimes a stubborn piece refuses to separate. He does not pull harder. Instead, he loosens the surrounding fibers first. Only then does the difficult strand release itself. Years have taught him that impatience often creates more work than patience ever does. Nearby, an elderly woman hums quietly once again. Her melody drifts softly through the courtyard. It has no clear beginning. No clear ending. It rises gently before settling into silence, only to return a few moments later. The tune seems to match the pace of the worker's hands. Roll. Separate. Lay aside. Begin again. One of the younger girls asks her grandmother where she learned that song. The old woman smiles without stopping her work. My mother sang it. And who taught her? My grandmother. The little girl thinks about this while gently combing a bundle of flax fibers. She imagines women many generations before her sitting beneath different roofs, in different villages, singing the very same melody while preparing fibers for rope. The thought makes the song feel older than anyone alive. Perhaps it is. Perhaps no one remembers where it first began. The village itself has its own songs. Not only melodies. The sounds of daily life become familiar enough to feel like music. The scrape of grain stones. The splash of water poured into clay jars. The quiet tapping of a carpenter shaping wood. The gentle bleating of goats waiting to be fed. The distant laughter of children. The soft flutter of pigeons settling upon rooftops. Each sound appears, fades, and returns in its own time. No one tries to silence them. They belong here. Across the courtyard, a group of prepared fibers has dried enough for combing. Simple wooden combs stand nearby. Their teeth are carved from hardwood and polished smooth by years of careful use. One worker lifts a bundle and slowly draws it through the comb. Tiny pieces of plant skin fall away. Loose fibers drift gently onto the ground. The longer strands remain together. With every careful pass, the bundle becomes softer, cleaner, more even. The younger craftsman runs his fingers through the finished fibers. They feel almost like flowing water. Smooth, cool, light. It is difficult to believe that these delicate strands will soon hold great weight. He remembers helping fishermen not long ago. One of their larger boats had been pulled onto the riverbank for repairs. The thick ropes securing the mast were worn after many seasons beneath the hot sun. The fishermen needed new ones. He and the old craftsman delivered several freshly made coils. The fishermen thanked them quietly. There was little ceremony. The ropes were immediately put to work. They wrapped securely around heavy wooden beams. They held fast beneath strong river winds. The younger craftsman had watched with quiet pride. Not because anyone praised him. Simply because something made by careful hands had become useful. He thinks about that now as he gently combs another bundle. Perhaps the rope begun today will someday secure another boat. Or guide a farmer's ox while plowing fields. Or lower water jars into a deep well. Or tie bundles of grain after harvest. The future of each rope remains unknown. Only its quality can be controlled. The old craftsman often says nothing at all. Yet when he does speak, his words stay with the younger workers. Do today's work, he once said softly. Tomorrow will decide where it travels. No one forgot those words. The sun continues rising. Its warmth spreads slowly across the courtyard. The coolness of morning has almost disappeared now. Workers wipe small beads of sweat from their brows. A young boy carries fresh water from the Nile in a rounded clay jar. The vessel is heavy. He walks carefully. Not a single drop spills. He places it beneath the shade where everyone can reach it. Each worker drinks when needed. No one takes more than necessary. The water tastes slightly cool after resting inside the thick clay. It refreshes tired hands as much as tired throats. The old craftsman splashes a little across his wrists. The moisture quickly disappears beneath the growing warmth of the day. One corner of the courtyard has become a place for twisting. Several finished bundles of clean fibers lie ready. Now the first true strands begin to appear. The old craftsman selects a handful. Not too many. Not too few. He arranges their ends evenly. Then he rolls them gently against his thigh. Downward. Always downward. The movement is smooth. His palm applies just enough pressure to encourage the fibers to wrap around one another. A thin strand begins forming. He repeats the motion. Again. And again. Each pass adds another tiny measure of strength. The younger workers follow. Soon the courtyard fills with the quiet whisper of fibers sliding against skin. It is a gentle sound, almost impossible to hear unless one listens carefully. The strands grow longer. Whenever fresh fibers must be added, they are overlapped gradually. There is no knot, no sudden joining. The old fibers slowly become new fibers through careful twisting. The connection nearly disappears. A person looking closely might never discover where one bundle ended and another began. The old craftsman appreciates this part of the work. Strong things often hide their beginnings well. A woman carrying bread passes the courtyard entrance. The smell follows her. Warm grain. Fresh crust. A faint hint of smoke from the oven. Soon the midday meal will arrive. But not yet. There is still time for several more strands. Across the lane, the potter has placed dozens of newly shaped bowls beneath the sun to dry. The carpenter pauses to sharpen his bronze chisel. The basket weaver adjusts a loose reed before continuing another careful pattern. Every workshop follows its own rhythm. Every craft depends upon patient repetition. No one expects quick results. The village itself seems built from thousands of small tasks completed one after another. Brick upon brick. Basket beside basket. Loaf after loaf. Strand beside strand. The younger craftsman notices his hands beginning to move without conscious thought. His body remembers the motion even while his mind wanders peacefully. He listens to the birds perched upon the courtyard wall. A pair of swallows dart through the open sky, catching tiny insects before disappearing beyond the rooftops. He watches a small lizard pause upon a warm stone. It remains perfectly still for several long moments before quietly slipping into a crack in the wall. Life surrounds the workers without interrupting them. The work continues. An elderly neighbor stops by carrying a worn piece of rope. One section has frayed after many years of faithful service. The old craftsman examines it carefully. He smiles. It has done its work well. The rope is not thrown away. Instead, the stronger sections will be saved. Short pieces may tie bundles of herbs. Others may secure lids upon storage jars. Even an old rope often has useful years remaining. Waste is rare. Resources are precious. Nothing is abandoned before its purpose is fully complete. The visitor thanks the craftsman and slowly walks home carrying a shorter repaired length of rope. The old craftsman watches him leave before returning to the fresh strands in his lap. The familiar rolling motion begins again. Steady. Gentle. Patient. The sun has nearly reached the middle of the sky now. Heat settles across the village like a warm blanket. The courtyard grows brighter. The shadows shrink beneath the workers. Soon there will be another pause for bread, water, and quiet conversation beneath woven shades. After that, the afternoon will bring thicker twisting, longer coils, and the careful joining of many finished strands into ropes strong enough to serve fields, boats, homes, workshops, and families for years to come. For now, though, no one thinks very far ahead. The workers simply remain with the task before them. One handful of fibers. One smooth roll of the hand. One careful twist. Then another. And another. As the steady rhythm continues beneath the warm Egyptian sun, the ordinary hours pass almost unnoticed, each one quietly becoming part of a craft that has endured through generations, not through haste or grand moments, but through thousands upon thousands of calm, patient movements made by hands content to work at the peaceful pace of the Nile itself. The sun now stands high above the village, pouring a bright and steady light across every rooftop, courtyard, and narrow lane. The morning coolness has become only a memory, tucked away beneath the growing warmth of the day. The mud brick walls, which welcomed the first light with quiet comfort, slowly begin storing the heat that will linger long after sunset. The rope makers feel the change without speaking of it. Their hands continue moving. Their shoulders rise and fall with calm, even breaths. The work does not become faster because the day has grown warmer. It simply continues. One careful motion follows another. The old craftsman reaches toward a finished bundle of combed fibers lying beside him. Before twisting can begin again, he gently shakes the bundle once, allowing the strands to settle naturally. Tiny pieces of dried plant drip down onto the woven mat beneath his knees. The fibers seem almost alive in the sunlight. Each strand catches a little of the bright afternoon glow before blending once more into the bundle. He runs his fingers through them slowly. Not searching for flaws. Simply feeling. His fingertips have become sensitive after so many years. They notice roughness that his eyes may never see. They notice tiny knots where several fibers crossed one another. They notice places where the strands have become too dry. The younger craftsman watches closely. He often wonders how the old man's hands seem to understand things before his eyes do. Perhaps they have learned through thousands of quiet mornings. Perhaps the skin itself remembers. The old craftsman separates one small section. He hands it to the younger worker. Feel this. The younger man closes his eyes. He rubs the fibers gently between his fingers. At first they seem perfectly smooth. Then he notices it. One tiny place feels slightly rougher than the rest. When he opens his eyes, he finds a narrow strip of outer skin still clinging to the fibers. It is almost invisible. The old craftsman smiles. Your fingers are beginning to learn. No long lesson follows. No praise beyond those few gentle words. The younger worker carefully removes the remaining piece. The bundle is ready. Across the courtyard, another group has begun twisting several finished cords together to create thicker rope. This work requires 2 people. Sometimes 3. Each person holds part of the growing rope while walking backward very slowly across the courtyard. Their movements are careful and measured. If one person walks too quickly, the rope tightens unevenly. If another pauses too long, loose places appear. The workers learn to move almost as one. Their footsteps become part of the rhythm. One step. Pause. A gentle turn of the wrist. Another step. The growing rope slowly stretches across the courtyard like a pale line drawn through the warm afternoon air. The old craftsman watches with quiet satisfaction. He remembers learning this stage many years ago. At first he often became impatient. He wanted to finish each length before the sun reached the western sky. His father would simply slow his own steps even more. There is no race, he had once said. The rope is already teaching us how fast it wishes to grow. Those words seemed strange to the young boy he had been. Now they feel perfectly clear. Some fibers twist willingly. Others ask for more patience. The rope decides much of its own pace. A gust of warm wind enters the courtyard. It carries fine desert dust that settles lightly across the woven mats. The workers pause only long enough to cover the cleanest bundles with linen cloth. The dust soon passes. The cloths are folded back. The work continues. These little interruptions are expected. The wind has always visited the village. Tomorrow it may come again. Beyond the courtyard walls, life follows its familiar course. A merchant slowly guides 2 donkeys through the village street. Large woven baskets hang from either side of each animal. Inside are onions, dried figs, small jars of oil, and folded linen cloth ready for trade. The baskets are secured with strong rope. The merchant glances at the cords without thinking about them. He trusts them. That quiet trust is the greatest reward a rope maker can receive. Nearby, a farmer repairs the wooden handle of a simple hoe. A short length of cord binds wood and bronze tightly together. Without it, the tool would soon fall apart. Not far away, a fisherman sits beneath the shade of a palm tree repairing a torn net. His fingers move carefully from knot to knot. Beside him lies a coil of fine rope made months earlier. He cuts small pieces whenever needed. Each small length helps return the net to usefulness. Throughout the village, rope quietly serves hundreds of small purposes. It hangs unnoticed from wooden beams. It secures water jars upon donkeys. It ties bundles of reeds waiting to become roofing. It fastens doors. It closes grain sacks. It supports drying herbs beneath shaded roofs. It steadies ladders leaning against walls. Its presence is almost invisible because everyone has grown accustomed to it. Only when a rope breaks does someone suddenly remember how important it has been. The old craftsman thinks about this while gently joining two finished strands. He overlaps their ends carefully. No sudden knot appears. Instead, each fiber slowly becomes part of the next. The join almost disappears. Strength comes through blending rather than forcing. His hands never rush this moment. A poor joining cannot hide for long. Time eventually reveals every weakness. The younger worker begins making his own join. He works slowly. Perhaps even more slowly than necessary. The old craftsman notices but says nothing. Care taken today becomes confidence tomorrow. There is little reason to hurry a careful learner. The sun continues shining brightly overhead. Heat settles upon every stone. The clay water jars standing in the shade become especially welcome now. One by one, workers pause for a drink. The water carries the faint taste of cool clay. It refreshes tired mouths and dry throats. A few workers pour small amounts across their wrists. Others splash their faces before returning to their places. No one lingers long. The day's rhythm gently draws everyone back. The elderly woman finishes another long strand. She coils it carefully at her feet. The circle grows larger with every turn. Watching the rope gather into neat loops is strangely satisfying. The long straight line slowly becomes a compact spiral, ready to be carried wherever it may be needed. A little girl watches with fascination. How does it fit? The old woman laughs softly. One circle welcomes the next. The child nods, trying to understand. She begins winding a small piece of scrap cord into her own tiny coil. It is uneven. Several loops cross one another. The old woman gently adjusts them. Soon the little coil lies neatly upon the mat. The child smiles. Small lessons often begin with simple games. The afternoon grows quieter. The loudest birds have found shaded places to rest. Even the goats lie beneath the shadow of low walls. The village seems to breathe more slowly during the hottest part of the day. Inside the courtyard, however, hands continue their peaceful labor. The old craftsman notices that today's fibers are especially long. The recent flooding of the Nile must have been kind to the plants. Long fibers create fewer joins. Fewer joins create smoother rope. The river has quietly offered another gift. He silently thanks it in his heart. Not with ceremony. Not with spoken words. Simply with gratitude carried inside a quiet mind. His father had done the same. His grandfather as well. Life beside the Nile teaches respect. The river feeds fields. It waters gardens. It fills clay jars. It carries boats. It nourishes reeds and flax. Without it, there would be little rope to make. A pair of swallows return to the courtyard. They dart gracefully through the warm air before settling beneath the edge of a roof. There, hidden among wooden beams, rests a carefully built nest made from mud, grass, and tiny fibers gathered from many places. The younger craftsman notices a familiar strand hanging from the edge. It looks very much like flax. He smiles quietly. Even the birds have become rope makers in their own way. They weave patiently. They gather one small piece after another. They trust that many tiny parts will become one safe home. The thought stays with him as he continues twisting another cord. The courtyard gradually fills with completed lengths. Some workers inspect each finished rope by gently stretching it between their hands. Others smooth rough places with careful fingers. Nothing leaves the workshop without one final look. Not because perfection is expected. Because care is expected. There is a difference. The old craftsman examines one thick rope intended for a boat. He places both hands around it. Its surface feels firm yet flexible. He bends it gently. The strands hold together beautifully. No gaps appear. No loose fibers rise from the surface. He nods once. It is ready. Nearby, another rope intended for farm work is slightly thinner. It does not need to carry the weight of a mast. Its purpose is different. Every rope has its own future. Every future asks for different strength. As the afternoon slowly begins its quiet journey toward evening, the light softens almost too gradually to notice. The sharp brightness of midday eases into a warmer golden glow. Long shadows begin their patient return across the courtyard floor. The workers do not mark the hour. They simply notice that the sun now rests a little lower above the western fields. The heat begins loosening its hold. A gentle breeze returns from the river, carrying with it the cool scent of water flowing steadily past reeds and anchored boats. The old craftsman lifts his eyes for a brief moment. Beyond the courtyard wall, he can just glimpse the tops of the papyrus swaying gently in the distance. Tomorrow morning they will once again stand waiting beneath the first light of dawn. Some will become baskets. Some will become writing material for scribes. Some will become sleeping mats. And some, chosen with patient hands, will begin another quiet journey toward becoming rope, one careful strand at a time, shaped through calm labor, steady breathing, and the peaceful rhythm of ordinary people whose names may be forgotten, yet whose work continues to quietly hold together the daily life of the ancient world. The afternoon light slowly softens, though the warmth of the day still rests across the village like a familiar blanket. The brightest hours have begun to pass, and a gentle breeze rises once again from the Nile. It moves quietly through the reeds before slipping between the mud brick homes, across shaded courtyards, and into the open workshop where the rope makers continue their patient labor. The breeze is welcomed without ceremony. No one pauses to admire it. Yet every worker feels its cool touch upon warm skin. A few loose strands of flax lift gently from the woven mats before settling back into place. The old craftsman watches them for only a moment. He has learned that even the wind deserves attention. If it grows stronger, the lighter fibers must be covered. If it remains gentle, it helps carry away the warmth gathering beneath the shade. Today it remains kind. The younger craftsman reaches toward another bundle prepared earlier in the morning. It has rested quietly for several hours after being combed. The fibers have become smooth and evenly dry. He lifts them with both hands. They are lighter than they appear. He separates them into several smaller groups. Each bundle will become one slender cord. Several cords will later become a thicker rope. The process has always been one of small beginnings. He smiles softly. There is something comforting about watching many tiny pieces slowly become something dependable. Across the courtyard, the elderly woman has begun teaching two children how to hold the fibers properly. The younger child grips them too tightly. The strands bend awkwardly. The old woman gently loosens the child's fingers. Let them rest. Her voice is little more than a whisper. The child relaxes. Immediately the fibers fall into a straighter line. There. The old woman smiles. They wish to stay together. The lesson seems simple. Yet everyone listening understands it reaches beyond rope alone. Gentleness often achieves what force cannot. The children begin again. Their movements remain clumsy. Several strands slip free. Others twist unevenly. No one laughs. Every experienced hand in the courtyard once looked exactly the same. Learning has always been slow. The old craftsman remembers his own childhood. His father rarely corrected him with many words. Instead, he would quietly begin another strand nearby. The young boy would watch. He would notice the relaxed shoulders, the steady breathing, the smooth movement of the palm. Then he would try once more. Little by little, his hands began understanding. Not all knowledge arrives through speech. Some enters quietly through observation. The courtyard grows peaceful again. The children settle into careful concentration. The adults return to their own work. Only the soft whisper of twisting fibers can be heard for a time. The sound is almost impossible to describe. It is lighter than footsteps. Softer than dry leaves moving across the ground. It comes from thousands of tiny fibers sliding gently against one another as they find their place inside each growing strand. The old craftsman enjoys this sound. He has heard it nearly every day of his life. To him it feels as familiar as the flowing river. Nearby, several finished ropes are ready for inspection. One worker slowly stretches a long piece between two wooden posts. The rope hangs in a gentle curve. The worker walks beside it, running careful fingers along its length. Every few steps, the rope is turned slightly. Each side receives the same careful attention. The surface must remain even. No sudden thick places. No unexpected thin ones. When a tiny loose fiber appears, it is carefully smoothed back into place. The worker does not consider this extra effort. It is simply part of finishing well. The old craftsman walks over to examine another coil. This one is intended for a merchant's river boat. The rope must survive many journeys beneath hot sun and cool nights. It will become wet. Then dry. Wet again. Strong rope accepts these changes quietly. Weak rope slowly loses itself. He bends the finished length around his arm. It curves naturally without becoming stiff. That is a good sign. He nods with quiet satisfaction before placing it neatly beside the others. The younger worker notices how carefully every finished rope is stored. None are thrown carelessly into piles. Each coil is laid gently upon another. The circles rest evenly. Heavy ropes remain at the bottom. Lighter ones above them. The arrangement keeps unnecessary weight from flattening the finer cords. Even after completion, the ropes continue receiving thoughtful care. A pair of merchants enter the courtyard. Their sandals leave faint prints across the dusty ground. Both men greet the workers politely. One carries a folded piece of linen listing several items needed for an upcoming journey. Large storage jars. Fresh baskets. New ropes. The old craftsman welcomes them with a quiet smile. No lengthy discussion follows. The merchants already know the quality of the workshop's work. One of them kneels beside several finished coils. He lifts one carefully. Its weight feels reassuring. Its surface is smooth beneath his palms. He slowly unwinds a short length before winding it again. Satisfied, he places it back exactly where he found it. Good rope speaks without words. The merchants choose several different sizes. Some thick enough for securing cargo. Others much thinner for tying smaller bundles. The old craftsman marks each selection with small strips of dyed fiber. Tomorrow morning the merchants will return with donkeys to carry them away. For now, the ropes remain where they are. The afternoon passes quietly. The visitors depart. The workshop returns to its familiar rhythm. Beyond the courtyard, the village continues its ordinary routines. Children carry water jars from the river. A shepherd leads a small flock of sheep through the edge of the settlement. The soft ringing of tiny bronze bells tied around a few animals drifts gently through the air. Women spread freshly washed linen upon flat rooftops where the warm breeze will dry it before sunset. A baker removes another batch of flat loaves from a clay oven. Warm bread fills the nearby streets with its comforting scent. The smell reaches the courtyard. Several workers smile. The evening meal is still some time away. Yet fresh bread always reminds people of home. The younger craftsman pauses to stretch his shoulders. He looks toward the entrance of the workshop. For a brief moment he watches the village instead of the fibers in his hands. Life moves slowly beyond the walls. No one appears rushed. A woman pauses to speak with an elderly neighbor. Two boys carefully guide a stubborn goat around a corner. An old man sits beneath the shade of a sycamore tree repairing a sandal strap. Everywhere, people work with steady purpose. The younger craftsman realizes that every task in the village depends upon another. The baker depends upon the farmer. The farmer depends upon the river. The fisherman depends upon his nets. The nets depend upon rope. The rope depends upon the reeds growing quietly beside the Nile. Nothing truly stands alone. The thought remains with him as he resumes twisting another cord. His hands move almost by themselves now. Roll. Guide. Twist. Smooth. Repeat. The motions have become peaceful companions. The old craftsman notices the young man's growing confidence. He says nothing. Approval often arrives through silence. Words are not always needed. As the afternoon slowly begins yielding to evening, the angle of sunlight changes once again. Golden light enters the courtyard from the west. It shines through hanging bundles of drying fibers, making them glow softly against the darker shade beneath the roof. Dust floats lazily through the beams of light. Each tiny grain drifts wherever the breeze carries it. One child watches the floating dust with quiet fascination. It reminds her of tiny insects dancing in the sunlight. Her grandmother smiles. "When I was your age," she says softly, "I watched the dust instead of my work." The child laughs. "So did you forget your fibers?" "Oh, many times." The old woman chuckles gently. "My grandmother reminded me with only one look." The little girl smiles and quickly returns her attention to the bundle in her lap. The old woman resumes humming her familiar melody. The tune slips gently through the warm air once more. A few workers quietly hum along. No one sings loudly. The melody simply becomes another part of the afternoon. Outside the village, the Nile continues flowing as it always has. Its waters reflect the lowering sun in long ribbons of gold. Boats drift quietly toward their evening moorings. Fishermen lift the last of their nets. White birds settle among the reeds where they will rest until dawn. The river never appears hurried. Season after season, year after year, it keeps its gentle pace. The old craftsman often thinks that good rope should resemble the river. Steady. Dependable. Patient. Never rushing toward its purpose. As another finished coil is laid carefully beside the growing collection, the courtyard begins preparing for the quieter hours that will follow sunset. There are still fibers waiting to be twisted. Still cords waiting to become rope. Still many calm hours of careful work ahead. The day has not yet finished its gentle journey. Neither have the patient hands that continue shaping simple plant fibers into something strong enough to serve homes, boats, fields, workshops, and families, one slow, thoughtful movement at a time beneath the timeless Egyptian sky. The golden light of late afternoon stretches gently across the courtyard, softening every edge it touches. The harsh brightness of midday has faded into warmer tones. The mud brick walls glow with quiet shades of honey and clay. Long shadows slowly reach across the woven mats where bundles of prepared fibers still wait patiently for careful hands. No one announces that the day is changing. The workers simply notice it. The sunlight no longer falls directly overhead. The breeze from the river carries a little more coolness. The birds become more active once again after resting through the hottest hours. The old craftsman reaches for another handful of fibers. His movements have not changed since sunrise. There is comfort in that. The same careful touch. The same measured pressure. The same quiet attention. Many years ago, when he was still a young apprentice, he wondered whether making rope would ever become boring. He imagined that repeating the same motions every day might make his thoughts restless. Instead, the opposite had happened. The familiar rhythm had settled his mind. Every strand invited patience. Every careful twist encouraged steady breathing. There was always another bundle waiting. Always another length to finish. Yet there was never any feeling that the work was chasing him. The work simply waited. The younger craftsman feels something similar now. As his hands continue rolling fibers into slender cords, his thoughts drift gently through memories of earlier seasons. He remembers gathering reeds during the yearly flood, when the river spread far beyond its usual banks. The water had reflected white gray clouds that morning. Tiny frogs had hidden among the grasses. The soil had been soft beneath his sandals. The plants harvested that season became especially smooth rope. The old craftsman had explained that healthy water often leaves its kindness inside the fibers. He did not describe it as science. He simply spoke from a lifetime of watching the river. Experience often teaches quietly. Nearby, the elderly woman has finished another coil. She places it beside several others arranged in neat circles. Each coil rests flat upon the woven mat. None lean against another. None become tangled. She has always believed that a rope deserves to rest properly after so many hours of careful work. The younger children watch her arrange them. One little boy asks why she never tosses them into a pile. She smiles. If you treat a useful thing gently, it often serves you longer. The boy nods with great seriousness. He lifts a short practice cord he has been making and carefully lays it beside the larger coils. Though uneven and slightly loose, it receives the same respectful treatment. The old woman notices but says nothing. Small habits grow into lasting ones. The courtyard grows pleasantly quiet again. Only the familiar sounds remain. Hands brushing softly across fibers. The occasional scrape of a wooden stool shifting on the packed earth. A swallow calling from the roof. The gentle rustle of palm leaves beyond the wall. The old craftsman pauses for a brief drink of water. The clay cup feels cool in his hands. He drinks slowly. Not because the water is scarce today, but because there is no reason to hurry. The water has rested inside a thick clay jar since morning. The porous walls of the vessel have kept it pleasantly cool despite the afternoon heat. When he finishes, he pours a few drops onto his fingertips. Plant fibers cling less easily to slightly damp skin. It is another small lesson learned over many seasons. No one taught him this with words. His own hands discovered it. Across the courtyard, 2 experienced workers begin joining 3 finished cords into one thick rope. Each cord has already been twisted carefully on its own. Now the real balance begins. One worker anchors the far end around a smooth wooden post. Another slowly walks backward, keeping gentle tension. The third guides the cords together. They move almost silently. The cords wind around one another with remarkable patience. Not too tightly. Not too loosely. Each turn supports the next. The younger craftsman watches with quiet admiration. Even after years of learning, he still finds beauty in this stage. 3 separate cords slowly become one. Their individual shapes disappear. Together they create something stronger than any could have been alone. He wonders how many ropes he has already helped make. Hundreds perhaps. Maybe more. The number hardly matters. No 2 days have felt exactly the same. The river changes. The weather changes. The plants change. Even the hands themselves change over time. Strength grows. Then slowly softens with age. Yet the work continues. A faint scent of baking bread drifts once more through the village. Evening meals are beginning. Smoke rises gently above several rooftops. Thin blue lines climb into the warm sky before disappearing. A young girl carrying a basket of onions walks past the entrance to the courtyard. She pauses for a moment to watch the rope makers. Her father repairs fishing boats. She has often seen new ropes delivered to the riverbank. Today she quietly watches where they begin. She notices how ordinary everything appears. No grand tools. No loud sounds. Only patient people sitting beneath shade. She smiles to herself before continuing home. Sometimes the beginning of something useful is much quieter than people imagine. The old craftsman lifts another finished rope. This one is shorter than most. It will likely remain within the village. Perhaps it will support the beam of a roof. Perhaps it will hold a water jar steady during travel. Perhaps it will tie together bundles of harvested barley. Its future remains unwritten. He gently coils it. His hands move almost without thought now. Each circle rests neatly beside the last. The rope settles comfortably into its new shape. Not far away, a farmer arrives carrying a worn wooden yoke once used for his oxen. The leather bindings have begun to crack after many years beneath the sun. He greets the old craftsman warmly. They have known one another for decades. Without many words, the farmer places the yoke upon the ground. The old craftsman examines it carefully. The wood remains strong. Only the bindings need replacing. He selects several lengths of fresh cord. Together they wrap the wood securely. The younger craftsman watches every movement. Repair often teaches as much as creating something new. The old bindings are removed slowly. The wood beneath them has become smoother after years of use. The fresh cord is wound carefully into place. Each turn lies close beside the previous one. The pattern grows evenly across the wood. When finished, the old craftsman gently pulls against the binding. Nothing slips. Nothing loosens. The farmer smiles with quiet satisfaction. He runs one weathered hand across the fresh wrapping. It will serve many seasons. The old craftsman nods. So will you. Both men laugh softly. Not loudly. Only the warm laughter shared between old friends who have watched many harvests together. The farmer thanks him and slowly begins the walk home. The repaired yoke rests comfortably across his shoulder. Tomorrow it will return to the fields before sunrise. The fresh cord will quietly perform its task without asking for attention. The younger craftsman notices something about the old man. Every repair receives the same care as a completely new rope. Nothing is rushed simply because it is old. Everything useful deserves respect. That lesson feels important. As the afternoon moves gently toward evening, the sunlight becomes richer still. Golden beams enter beneath the edge of the workshop roof. Bundles of flax glow softly where they hang to finish drying. Tiny floating fibers sparkle briefly before disappearing into shadow. The children have grown quieter now. Hours of learning have made them pleasantly tired. One little boy rests beside his grandmother while absent-mindedly rolling a short bundle of practice fibers between his palms. The strand grows unevenly. It twists in one place and loosens in another. The old woman notices. Instead of correcting him immediately, she simply places her own hands over his. Together they roll the fibers slowly. The child feels the steady pressure. The gentle rhythm. After several moments she lifts her hands away. He continues alone. This time the strand remains smooth. He looks up with wide eyes. It stayed together. She smiles. Because your hands became patient. The boy studies the growing strand with quiet wonder. Perhaps tomorrow he will remember. Perhaps next season. Learning arrives one peaceful afternoon at a time. Outside the village walls, the fields stretch toward the horizon. Workers gather the last armfuls of cut reeds before evening dew returns. A shepherd whistles softly to his flock. The animals answer by drawing closer together. White egrets glide low above the river before settling among the tall papyrus. Everything seems to prepare naturally for another quiet night. Inside the courtyard, the rope makers continue without hurry. The growing collection of finished coils now fills nearly one side of the storage room. Some are destined for nearby farms. Others will travel along the Nile aboard merchant boats. A few may even reach distant settlements many days away. Yet at this moment they all rest together in peaceful silence. The old craftsman looks toward the western sky. The sun has lowered enough that its warmth feels gentle once more. Soon the lamps will be lit. The evening meal will be shared. Hands that have worked since before dawn will finally rest. But not quite yet. There are still a few more strands waiting to be twisted. A few more careful joins waiting to be made. A few more quiet moments to spend in the company of fibers, friends, and the slow, dependable rhythm that has shaped this workshop for generations, as steadily as the Nile itself continues its endless journey through the ancient land. The sun slips a little lower with every quiet moment, and the light across the courtyard grows softer than it was only a short while ago. The warm colors of the afternoon begin changing into deeper shades of gold. The mud brick walls seem to hold the sunlight gently, as though they are reluctant to let it go. The rope makers remain where they are. No one speaks about the passing hours. The changing light is enough. It has always been enough. The old craftsman reaches for one of the final bundles prepared earlier that day. The fibers rest lightly in his hands. They have dried just enough to become strong without becoming brittle. He gently lifts the bundle and gives it a slow shake. A few loose strands drift downward. They settle onto the woven mat like tiny feathers. He gathers the remaining fibers together. His fingers move with the confidence of many decades. He no longer thinks about where each finger should rest. His hands simply know. The younger craftsman sits nearby, working on a rope that has already grown longer than the height of two men standing one upon the other's shoulders. The length stretches across much of the courtyard. As it grows, another worker slowly gathers the finished portion into wide, loose circles. The coils are never pulled tightly. Fresh rope still carries a little memory of the twisting. If bent too sharply, it may lose some of its easy flexibility. The workers have learned this through experience. Gentleness at the end of the work is just as important as patience at the beginning. A faint breeze arrives from the river. It carries the smell of wet reeds, damp earth, and fresh water moving quietly around anchored boats. The old craftsman pauses for a single breath. He closes his eyes. Only for a moment. The scent reminds him of his childhood. He remembers walking beside his father before sunrise with baskets much too large for a small boy to carry comfortably. He remembers trying to lift them without asking for help. He remembers pretending they felt lighter than they truly did. His father had noticed, of course. Without saying anything, the older man had quietly moved several bundles into his own basket. The boy's load became easier. No words were exchanged. The kindness needed no explanation. Even now, after so many years, that memory returns whenever the river carries the smell of fresh reeds into the village. The younger craftsman notices the old man's quiet smile. He wonders what memory has visited him. He does not ask. Some thoughts belong peacefully to the person remembering them. Around the courtyard, the work continues. An elderly woman gently separates several strands that have become crossed. She does not tug at them. She lays them across her lap and patiently frees them one at a time. Her granddaughter watches closely. The little girl has learned that nearly every difficulty inside the workshop can be solved by slowing down. When fibers become tangled, they ask for patience. When a strand becomes uneven, it asks for careful hands. When a rope grows heavy, several people quietly help carry it. Very little here is answered by force. The child stores these lessons quietly inside herself. Perhaps she does not fully understand them yet. There is no need. Understanding often arrives years after the lesson itself. Across the lane, the carpenter has nearly finished his own day's work. He brushes wood shavings into a neat pile before placing his tools upon a low shelf. His bronze chisel catches the golden sunlight one last time before disappearing into the growing shade. He stretches his back and looks toward the rope makers. Tomorrow he will likely need another length of cord for a wooden cart he is repairing. He makes a quiet note to visit the workshop after sunrise. Useful crafts often meet one another. The basket maker depends upon the rope maker. The rope maker depends upon the farmer. The farmer depends upon the carpenter. The carpenter depends upon the potter for water jars. The potter depends upon the river. Everything circles gently back toward the Nile. The old craftsman begins another join. Two finished cords lie side by side. He overlaps their ends carefully. One bundle of fibers slowly blends into the next. His thumbs smooth the transition. His palms roll gently along the growing strand. Little by little, the join disappears. Only someone searching very carefully would ever know where it had been. The younger worker tries the same technique. His join is good. Not perfect. A tiny thick place remains. The old craftsman notices it immediately. He reaches over without speaking. His fingers gently loosen only 3 small turns. He rearranges several fibers. Then he twists them once again. The thicker place vanishes. He hands the rope back. The younger craftsman smiles. So little. So important. The old man nods. Small things stay inside the rope forever. Those words settle quietly over the courtyard. No one answers. Everyone understands. As the day grows older, the workshop itself seems to relax. The busiest hours have passed. The great piles of fresh stalks gathered in the morning have almost entirely become clean fibers, slender cords, or finished rope. Only a few bundles remain waiting for tomorrow. The floor carries little traces of the day's labor. Bits of dry plant skin. Tiny loose fibers. A few footprints crossing the dusty ground. Nothing feels untidy. Only lived in. Only used. The old craftsman appreciates workshops that show signs of honest work. Perfect cleanliness belongs to places where nothing has happened. Here, every mark tells a quiet story. Near the entrance, a young woman arrives carrying a clay bowl covered with linen. Inside are fresh figs gathered that afternoon. She offers them to the workers with a warm smile. The old craftsman thanks her gently. The bowl is passed from one person to another. No one takes many. Each worker enjoys the sweetness slowly. The figs are soft from the day's warmth. Their simple flavor feels refreshing after so many hours of steady labor. The seeds crunch gently between tired teeth. The bowl returns nearly empty. The young woman laughs softly. I thought that might happen. The old craftsman smiles. So did we. She continues toward her home as the workers finish the last of the fruit. Small kindnesses move quietly through the village. A loaf of bread shared. Fresh water carried. A bowl of figs offered. A repaired tool returned. None of these moments become famous. Yet together they make ordinary life gentle. A swallow swoops low through the courtyard. For a brief instant it seems almost close enough to touch. Then it rises again toward the roof where several others wait. The birds chatter softly among themselves before lifting together into the evening sky. The younger craftsman follows them with his eyes. He wonders where they sleep each night. Perhaps beneath rocky cliffs beyond the fields. Perhaps inside hidden places among palm trees. Tomorrow morning they will return again. Like the workers. Like the river. Like the sun itself. Some rhythms continue without needing reminders. The old craftsman carefully measures another finished rope. He does not use marked sticks or written numbers. Instead, he stretches the rope between his outstretched arms again and again. His body has become its own measuring tool. Years of repeating the same movements have taught him remarkable accuracy. When the length feels right, he cuts the final fibers cleanly with his sharpened knife. The rope is complete. He smooths both ends carefully to prevent them from loosening. Then he coils it slowly. The circles fall naturally into place. The younger craftsman notices how every finished coil seems peaceful. Nothing is forced into shape. The rope simply follows the path created during its making. Perhaps people are not so different. Many years of patient habit slowly shape a life. The thought stays with him as he reaches for another bundle. The light continues fading. Golden colors deepen toward amber. Long shadows stretch almost completely across the courtyard now. The tops of the palm trees beyond the wall glow brightly while the ground beneath them begins slipping into cool shade. Even the air feels different. The heat has softened. Breathing becomes easier. Several workers quietly roll their shoulders. Others stretch tired fingers. The old craftsman opens and closes each hand slowly. His joints are stiff. Not painfully. Simply with the familiar heaviness that follows many hours of careful work. He welcomes the feeling. It reminds him that the day has been useful. A donkey passes outside carrying empty grain baskets. Its slow footsteps echo gently along the narrow lane. The animal lowers its head as it walks, content after another ordinary day. Its harness is held together by rope made many seasons ago. Though faded by sun and dust, it remains dependable. The old craftsman watches until the donkey disappears around the corner. He feels a quiet satisfaction without claiming it as pride. Good work often continues long after the hands that created it have forgotten where it went. One by one, the final bundles are placed neatly upon shelves inside the storage room. Tomorrow they will wait for patient hands once more. The door remains open while the evening breeze moves gently through the room, carrying away the warmth gathered during the afternoon. The scent inside is pleasant. Dry flax, papyrus, fresh cord, smooth wood, clay, dust warmed by sunlight. It is the smell of a place where ordinary things become useful through time and careful attention. The old craftsman takes one last look around the courtyard before returning to his work. There are still a few strands left to finish before the first evening lamps begin glowing in the village. No one hurries toward the end of the day. There is still enough light. Still enough quiet. Still enough patience. And so, beneath the slowly darkening Egyptian sky, while the Nile continues its endless and gentle journey beyond the village, the rope makers remain seated together, allowing one more bundle of humble plant fibers to become another dependable length of rope, shaped by steady hands, peaceful hearts, and the unhurried rhythm of another ordinary day that is gradually settling into the calm embrace of evening. The first hints of evening settle gently across the village. The change comes so slowly that no single moment marks its arrival. The bright gold of the afternoon becomes softer, then deeper, until the sunlight resting upon the mud brick walls takes on the warm color of baked clay fresh from the kiln. The long shadows stretching across the courtyard quietly blend together, creating broad patches of cool shade where only a little while ago the ground had been bright. The workers notice the change without speaking. The old craftsman glances toward the western sky. The sun has lowered until it now rests just above the distant line of palm trees beyond the river. Its light no longer falls sharply from above. Instead, it reaches into the courtyard at a gentle angle, touching the bundles of prepared fibers with a soft amber glow. Every strand seems almost golden. The younger craftsman pauses for only a heartbeat to admire the sight. It happens every evening. Yet it never feels ordinary. Tiny fibers catch the light before disappearing again into the growing shade. They seem almost weightless, drifting wherever the smallest breath of wind carries them. The old man smiles quietly. "The evening likes flax," he says. The younger worker looks up. "It makes it shine." The old craftsman nods. "The river gives it life. The sun gives it color. And our hands give it purpose." The words are spoken softly. No one answers immediately. There is no need. The thought settles peacefully among everyone working nearby. The children continue practicing with their shorter bundles. The little boy who struggled earlier in the afternoon now holds the fibers much more gently. His shoulders have relaxed. His hands no longer squeeze tightly. The old woman watches from beside him. She notices that he has begun breathing more slowly while he works. She smiles to herself. Children often learn with their whole bodies before they understand with their minds. Without realizing it, he has matched his breathing to the movement of his hands. Roll. Breathe. Guide. Breathe again. The strand becomes smoother. Across the courtyard another pair of workers prepares several finished ropes for storage. Each coil is carefully examined before being placed upon a wooden shelf inside the cool storage room. The shelves themselves were built many years ago by a carpenter who has long since grown old. The wood has darkened with age. Its surface carries faint marks where thousands of coils have rested over the years. Every scratch tells a quiet story. Every polished corner remembers countless careful hands. The old craftsman enters the storage room carrying a thick rope across both arms. Inside, the air feels pleasantly cool. The thick mud brick walls protect the room from the strongest afternoon heat. The smell is comforting. Dry flax, papyrus, wood, clay. A faint scent of river reeds. He places the rope upon an empty space beside several others. The coils fit neatly together like resting circles. He steps back for a moment. The shelves are nearly full now. Several days of patient work surround him. Each coil began as a handful of living plants growing beside the Nile. Now they wait quietly for whatever work tomorrow may bring. Some ropes will leave at sunrise. Others may remain here for many days. There is no way to know. Outside, the younger craftsman continues twisting another long cord. His hands have become pleasantly tired. Not weak. Simply heavy from honest labor. The skin across his palms feels warm. Tiny pieces of flax cling to his fingers. When he brushes them away, more soon appear. He smiles. By the end of every working day, it almost seems as though the fibers wish to travel home with him. The old craftsman returns from the storage room carrying several worn ropes. They have come back from different parts of the village for repair. One supported a water well for many years. Another secured the gate of a goat pen. A third held together the frame of a merchant's cart. Each rope shows signs of long service. The fibers have become smooth from constant use. Some sections have darkened beneath years of dust and sunlight. Others remain surprisingly strong. The old man lays them across a woven mat. Repair begins with careful listening. Not listening with ears. Listening with hands. He slowly bends each rope. He feels where it remains flexible. He notices where the fibers have become stiff. He gently separates worn strands near one end. The younger craftsman watches closely. Making new rope is one skill. Understanding old rope is another. The old craftsman often says that every worn rope tells the story of its work. This one carries tiny grains of fine sand trapped between its fibers. Perhaps it spent many seasons dragging across dry ground beside loaded carts. Another smells faintly of river water. It likely served aboard a fishing boat. One section is polished smoother than the rest. Perhaps countless hands held that exact place while pulling heavy nets from the Nile. The rope remembers. Its surface quietly keeps those memories. The younger worker lifts the rope that came from the cart. He notices tiny marks where wooden pegs rubbed against it year after year. The wear forms a repeating pattern. Almost beautiful in its own quiet way. He had never thought of old rope as something worth studying. Now he begins seeing it differently. Every useful object carries a history. The old craftsman trims away only the truly damaged sections. The stronger lengths remain. Soon they will become shorter cords for household use. Nothing useful disappears simply because it has grown old. The fibers deserve one more season. Perhaps several. A young woman enters the courtyard carrying 2 clay jars filled with cool water. She places them beneath the shade. The workers thank her with gentle smiles. One by one they drink. The water tastes especially refreshing now. The evening breeze has cooled the outside of the jars. Tiny drops of moisture cling to the clay. The younger craftsman rests the cool jar briefly against his wrist before drinking. The relief feels wonderful after so many hours beneath the warm sun. Beyond the village, the fields glow beneath the lowering light. Farmers gather the final bundles of harvested barley onto simple wooden sleds. Oxen walk slowly home. Dust rises gently around their hooves before settling once more. Nothing moves quickly. The day itself seems to encourage slower steps. A fisherman poles his narrow boat toward the shore. His catch is modest. Several silverfish rest inside a woven basket lined with damp reeds. The rope securing his boat to the dock was made in this very courtyard many months ago. He unties it carefully. Then ties it again after adjusting the boat's position. The rope performs its quiet duty without complaint. Nearby, a temple servant secures the doors of a small storage building using another thick cord. The knot is simple, strong, easy to untie at dawn. Even sacred places depend upon ordinary crafts. The old craftsman often finds comfort in that thought. The greatest buildings, the smallest homes, the busiest boats, the quietest farms, all rely upon humble things made patiently by ordinary people. The courtyard grows quieter as evening deepens. Conversation becomes softer. The children speak less now. Hours of learning have made them sleepy. One little girl leans gently against her grandmother while absent-mindedly holding a short practice strand. The old woman strokes the child's hair with one hand while continuing to twist fibers with the other. The motion never stops. Even kindness seems to find its own rhythm here. The younger craftsman notices something he has never truly seen before. The old craftsman's breathing. Every movement of his hands matches each slow breath. Nothing is hurried. Nothing feels forced. Perhaps that is why his work remains so even. The younger man quietly slows his own breathing. Almost immediately his hands become steadier. The fibers slide together more naturally. He says nothing. Some discoveries feel too peaceful to interrupt with words. The old craftsman glances toward him. Perhaps he notices. Perhaps he simply senses the change. Either way, he offers only a small smile before returning to his own work. A flock of ibis flies overhead toward the marshes. Their broad wings catch the final sunlight. For a few moments their shadows glide across the courtyard floor. The children look upward. Then the birds disappear beyond the reeds. Silence returns once more. The old craftsman lifts another completed rope. He gently rubs a little smooth river stone along its surface. Not to polish it, only to settle a few tiny loose fibers. The stone has served this purpose for many years. It fits comfortably inside his hand. Its edges have become perfectly rounded after countless uses. Simple tools often become trusted companions. He places the stone back beside his knife. Each has earned its place. The western sky now glows with deep amber and pale rose. Soon the first stars will appear. Soon lamps will be lit inside homes throughout the village. The smell of evening meals already drifts through the air. Lentils simmer slowly. Fresh bread warms once more beside glowing ovens. Roasted onions sweeten over small cooking fires. The familiar scents mingle with the fragrance of dry flax and river reeds inside the courtyard. The old craftsman inhales slowly. The day is gently coming to rest. Yet there is still enough light for a few more careful twists. A few more quiet repairs. A few more moments shared among friends whose hands have spent another peaceful day turning humble plants into strong rope. And so the work continues beneath the calm Egyptian sky, following the same unhurried rhythm that has carried this village through season after season, generation after generation, as faithfully as the timeless waters of the Nile continue their quiet journey through the heart of the ancient land. The western sky slowly deepens into rich shades of amber and copper. The bright edge of the sun now rests against the distant line of date palms, where the broad leaves seem almost black against the glowing horizon. Across the village, the light becomes softer with every passing moment, and the warmth that filled the afternoon begins to loosen its gentle hold upon the earth. The courtyard grows quieter still. The busiest hours of work have passed. Yet no one rises to leave. There are still small tasks waiting. The rope makers have long understood that the final moments of the day deserve as much care as the first. The old craftsman reaches toward a shallow woven basket filled with short pieces of flax left over from the longer strands. None are long enough to become heavy rope on their own, but each still holds value. He turns the basket slowly in his lap. His fingertips search through the pale fibers. Some are nearly as long as his forearm. Others are no longer than his hand. Years ago, when he was still learning, he asked his father what should be done with pieces too short for large ropes. His father had smiled. They have not finished becoming useful. The answer had puzzled him then. Now it feels obvious. The shorter fibers become thin cords for tying herbs. They bind bundles of onions. They fasten lids upon clay jars. They secure sandals while new leather is prepared. Sometimes they hold a child's toy together for another season. No piece is judged only by its size. Its purpose simply changes. The younger craftsman begins sorting the shorter fibers into careful piles. Without realizing it, he arranges them much as the old man does. The habit has quietly entered his hands. One pile for longer pieces. Another for medium lengths. Another for the shortest. The old craftsman notices. He says nothing. Some lessons become complete without words. A little breeze wanders into the courtyard. It is cooler now than it was an hour before. The linen hanging beneath the roof stirs gently. Bundles of drying fibers sway almost imperceptibly. The air carries the scent of evening water from the Nile. The river often smells different after sunset. The warmth of the day fades from its surface. Moist earth begins releasing its quiet fragrance. The reeds whisper more softly. It is a scent the old craftsman has known since childhood. He believes he could recognize it anywhere. Outside the courtyard, footsteps become less frequent. Many villagers have already returned home. Cooking fires burn steadily behind low walls. Warm light from the first oil lamps begins shining through open doorways. A woman hums quietly while grinding spices with a smooth stone. The fragrance of coriander drifts into the lane. Nearby, someone stirs a clay pot of lentils over a slow fire. The bubbling is gentle. Almost sleepy. Children's laughter grows softer as tiredness settles over them. The younger craftsman glances toward the entrance. His own home is only a short walk away. His wife will already be preparing the evening meal. His daughter will likely be sitting beside the doorway watching the sky grow darker. She enjoys counting the first stars. Sometimes she proudly announces that she has found one before anyone else. He smiles at the thought. There will still be time to sit with her tonight. The old craftsman notices the smile. You are thinking of home. Yes. The stars. My daughter. The old man nods. They wait patiently. The younger craftsman returns his attention to the fibers before him. It is easier to work well when the mind feels peaceful. The old craftsman often says that hurried thoughts travel into hurried hands. Calm thoughts make calmer work. Across the courtyard, Two women begin brushing away the small pieces of dried plant that have gathered across the floor during the day. They use simple reed brooms tied together with thin cord. Every sweep is slow. Nothing is raised into great clouds of dust. Instead, the tiny fragments collect into neat piles. Some will be burned later. Some will return to the compost heap beside the gardens. Even the remains of the day's work quietly continue their usefulness. The storage room stands open. Its shelves now hold dozens of carefully coiled ropes. The evening light entering through the doorway paints long golden lines across the nearest coils. Each circle casts a small curved shadow upon the one beneath it. The arrangement reminds the younger craftsman of ripples spreading across still water. He steps inside carrying another finished rope. The room feels pleasantly cool. He places the new coil beside the others. For a few moments he simply stands there. The quiet inside the storage room feels different from the quiet outside. It carries the peaceful satisfaction of completed work. Nothing inside asks to be finished. Everything simply waits. He wonders where each rope will travel. One may remain in the village for many years. Another may drift hundreds of river bends away aboard a merchant's boat. A third may support the roof of a house not yet built. He will probably never know. That has never troubled him. Useful work often disappears into the lives of others. Perhaps that is exactly where it belongs. He returns to the courtyard. The old craftsman has begun wrapping completed coils with small tying cords so they will remain neat during transport. The knots are simple. Easy to loosen. Strong enough to hold. He ties them almost without looking. His fingers remember every movement. Nearby, the elderly woman gathers the children's practice strands. She does not throw away the uneven ones. Instead, she untwists them gently. The fibers can be used again tomorrow. The little boy watches with surprise. I thought it was finished. She smiles. It is finished for today. Will it become rope tomorrow? Perhaps. The child nods thoughtfully. He likes the idea that nothing is truly wasted. Tomorrow always gives another chance. The old craftsman overhears the conversation. He remembers how many times he untwisted his own early attempts. Far too many to count. If someone had saved only the successful strands, he would have learned much more slowly. Failure, too, has its place in the workshop. It simply becomes another bundle of fibers waiting to begin again. A small flock of pigeons lands upon the edge of the courtyard wall. They peck quietly at scattered seeds left from someone's midday meal. One bird picks up a tiny loose flax fiber. It flies away carrying the pale strand in its beak. The younger craftsman watches until it disappears beyond the rooftops. Perhaps it is building a nest. Perhaps that single fiber will help keep young birds warm during cool spring nights. He smiles. Even the smallest pieces continue traveling toward new purposes. The evening grows cooler. The old craftsman slowly stands and stretches. His knees feel stiff after sitting for so many hours. He places both hands upon the small of his back and gently straightens. Several nearby workers do the same. The day's labor settles quietly into their muscles. No one complains. Their bodies simply acknowledge another honest day. The younger craftsman rubs his palms together. The skin feels rough. Tiny lines across his fingertips hold traces of flax dust that no washing will completely remove tonight. By morning, much of it will be gone. Before another evening arrives, fresh fibers will take its place. Such is the rhythm of the work. The old craftsman lifts a smooth river pebble from beside his tools. It has accompanied him for many years. He turns it slowly in his hand. Its surface has become almost silky after endless use smoothing finished ropes. He remembers finding it as a young man along a quiet bend in the Nile. It had rested among hundreds of other stones. For reasons he never fully understood, this one felt right. He brought it home. Since then it has helped finish countless ropes. Simple objects often become faithful companions through long years of ordinary service. A distant temple bell sounds softly across the evening air. Just a single gentle note. Several workers lift their heads for a moment. Then they return to gathering the final tools. Knives are wiped clean. Wooden combs are stacked carefully. Clay water jars are covered with linen to keep out the night's dust. Nothing is left carelessly where the morning might find it. The workshop prepares for rest just as the village does. Outside, the first bright star appears above the eastern horizon. The little girl waiting outside her family's home points excitedly toward the sky. There. Her mother looks up and smiles. You found it again. The younger craftsman imagines that moment as he finishes winding one last slender cord into a small coil. Soon he will walk home beneath those same stars. But not yet. There is still one final bundle to place upon the shelf. One last mat to roll. One last careful glance across the quiet courtyard where another ordinary day has been gently transformed into rows of dependable rope, ready to serve farmers, fishermen, builders, merchants, families, and travelers all through the patient work of hands that ask for no praise beyond the quiet satisfaction of knowing they have made something honest, something lasting, and something worthy of another peaceful dawn beside the timeless waters of the Nile. The last light of the sun slips quietly beyond the distant palms, leaving behind a sky painted in gentle layers of amber, rose, and deepening blue. The warmth that rested upon the village throughout the day begins to drift upward into the evening air. Little by little, the earth releases the heat it gathered beneath the steady Egyptian sun. The courtyard changes with the light. The colors soften. The shadows become wider. The edges of every tool, every basket, and every coil of rope seem gentler than they did only an hour before. The old craftsman remains seated for a little while longer. There is no reason to hurry home. The day's work deserves a peaceful ending. He rests both hands upon his knees. For the first time since dawn, his fingers are completely still. The quiet feels different now. During the day, silence was filled with movement. Now it is filled with rest. He slowly looks around the courtyard. The woven mats have been rolled and stacked neatly against one wall. The wooden combs rest together inside a shallow basket. The small knives have been cleaned and wrapped in linen cloth. Clay jars stand covered near the doorway. Finished ropes fill the storage shelves in careful rows. Everything has returned to its place. The workshop seems to breathe more slowly. The younger craftsman carries the final bundle of cleaned fibers into the storage room. These fibers have not yet become rope. Tomorrow they will continue their journey. Tonight they simply wait. He places them gently upon an empty shelf. The fibers still carry the faint scent of the river where they grew. Fresh. Earthy. Calm. He closes the storage room door halfway. Not completely. The evening breeze should still pass through the room during the night. The old craftsman taught him long ago that dry air keeps the fibers comfortable. Too much dampness makes them heavy. Too much heat makes them brittle. Even while resting, the fibers ask for thoughtful care. Outside, the first oil lamp is lit. Its small flame flickers softly inside a simple clay bowl. The warm light reaches only a short distance. It does not chase away the evening. It simply creates a small island of comfort within it. Another lamp appears across the lane. Then another farther down the street. Soon tiny points of golden light glow quietly throughout the village. From a distance they resemble stars that have settled gently upon the earth. The elderly woman folds her linen cloth carefully. She brushes a few remaining flax fibers from its surface before placing it over one shoulder. Her granddaughter stands beside her, holding the small practice cord she made earlier. The strand is uneven. Several places are thicker than others. One end twists a little too tightly. The other remains loose. The child looks at it with uncertain eyes. It isn't very good. The old woman kneels beside her. She gently takes the little cord into her hands. It is your first one. But yours are smoother. They were not always. The little girl looks surprised. Were they like mine? The old woman smiles warmly. My first one was much worse. The child laughs softly. It was. Oh, much worse. She hands the little cord back. Keep it? So I can use it? So one day you can remember how much your hands have learned. The little girl carefully coils the tiny cord. It may never hold a boat. It may never secure a roof. Yet tonight it holds something else. A beginning. The old craftsman watches the exchange with quiet satisfaction. Every generation begins with uncertain fingers. Every experienced hand was once small. The knowledge moves forward one patient lesson at a time. Outside the courtyard, evening life gently unfolds. Families gather beneath flat rooftops where the cooling air feels pleasant after the warmth of the day. Clay bowls filled with lentils are shared. Fresh bread is torn into small pieces. Olives, onions, dates, and dried fish pass quietly from one hand to another. Conversations remain soft. No one wishes to disturb the calm settling over the village. A father tells his son about repairing an irrigation channel. A mother reminds her daughter to collect herbs in the morning before the sun grows hot. An elderly neighbor remembers a flood many seasons ago when the Nile rose higher than anyone expected. The stories move slowly. No one interrupts. There will always be time for another memory. The younger craftsman finally gathers his basket. It is much lighter now than it was at sunrise. Inside rests only his small knife, a folded cloth, and a few scraps of flax that can still be used tomorrow. He lifts the basket onto his shoulder. The weight feels familiar. He has carried it home nearly every evening for many years. The old craftsman walks beside him. Neither man speaks for a while. Their sandals make soft sounds against the packed earth. The narrow street glows gently beneath the light of scattered oil lamps. The smell of evening meals drifts through open doorways. A cat slips silently across the lane before disappearing behind a stack of clay jars. Somewhere nearby, a baby begins to cry. Only for a moment. Soon the gentle voice of a mother calms the child again. The village settles more deeply into night. As they walk, they pass the carpenter's workshop. The wooden shutters have already been closed. Inside, the smell of fresh cut wood still lingers. Tomorrow morning, the carpenter will return before sunrise. His tools will wait exactly where he left them. Farther along, they pass the potter's yard. Rows of bowls and water jars stand quietly beneath woven covers. The clay has cooled after spending the day beneath the sun. Tomorrow some pieces will be fired. Others will remain drying. Every craft follows its own patient rhythm. The rope makers understand this well. They continue toward the river. Not because more work awaits. Only because the evening path beside the Nile has become part of the journey home. The river looks different now. Its surface reflects the deep blue of the evening sky. The last colors of sunset stretch across the water in long ribbons that slowly fade with every passing breath. A fishing boat glides silently toward the shore. Its oars move so gently that barely a ripple appears behind them. The fishermen speak in low voices. Their nets lie neatly folded. Several thick ropes secure baskets inside the boat. The younger craftsman watches for a moment. Perhaps one of those ropes came from their own workshop. Perhaps not. Either way, it is quietly serving its purpose. The old craftsman kneels beside the river. He cups both hands into the cool water. He washes away the last fine dust of flax from his fingers. Tiny pale strands float briefly upon the surface before drifting downstream. The river accepts them without complaint. The younger man does the same. The cool water eases the warmth remaining in his hands. They sit together on a smooth stone for a little while. The breeze moving across the Nile feels cooler now. Palm leaves rustle softly overhead. Frogs begin calling from the reeds hidden along the shoreline. The stars continue appearing one by one. The old craftsman finally speaks. "My father liked this time of day." The younger worker listens quietly. He said the river becomes a mirror. A mirror. It shows whether your heart has become calm. The younger craftsman looks across the water. The surface is almost perfectly still. The reflection of the first stars trembles gently with the current. He smiles. "I think he was right." The old man nods. "So do I." They remain there without speaking. The silence between old friends carries no discomfort. Only peace. Nearby, a heron stands motionless in the shallows. Its reflection stretches across the quiet water. Every few moments it takes one careful step. Then waits again. Even the birds seem to understand the slow rhythm of evening. Eventually the two craftsmen rise. The village waits just beyond the riverbank. Warm meals. Waiting families. Resting mats. Another peaceful night. Tomorrow, before the first glow of dawn reaches the eastern sky, they will once again gather empty baskets and walk toward the reeds. The Nile will greet them as it always has. Fresh fibers will wait patiently within green stalks. Hands will begin their familiar work. One careful strand. One gentle twist. One quiet hour after another. And so, beneath a sky now filled with countless steady stars, the ordinary rhythm of ancient Egypt settles softly into the night, carrying with it the quiet satisfaction of simple labor completed with patience, kindness, and hands that have spent another peaceful day transforming humble plants into ropes that will quietly support the lives of many long after the makers themselves have returned home to rest. The night has settled fully over the village now. The last glow of sunset has faded beyond the western horizon, leaving the sky deep and clear. Thousands of stars rest quietly above the Nile, their reflections trembling gently upon the slow-moving water. The river, which watched over the day's work from the first pale light of dawn until the final evening breeze, continues its endless journey through the ancient land without hurry, without noise, and without asking to be noticed. The village has grown still. The narrow streets that welcomed baskets, sandals, and quiet conversation throughout the day now rest beneath the soft glow of scattered oil lamps. One by one, those lamps are gently covered or allowed to fade as families prepare for sleep. Cooking fires become glowing embers. The smell of fresh bread lingers softly in the warm night air. Somewhere nearby, a donkey shifts comfortably before settling once again. A fishing boat rocks gently against its mooring. Palm leaves whisper to one another whenever the breeze passes through. The old craftsman lies once more upon his woven reed mat. His hands, rough from many decades of patient labor, rest peacefully across his chest. The tiny cuts, the calluses, and the faint traces of flax that remained beneath his fingernails have become part of a long and quiet life lived with care. He does not think about how many ropes he has made. There would be far too many to count. Instead, he remembers only the feeling of the fibers sliding gently through his fingers, the cool mornings beside the Nile, the voices of friends working nearby, and the steady comfort of ordinary days that asked for patience more than greatness. Across the village, the younger craftsman has finished his evening meal. His daughter has already fallen asleep. The little practice cord she proudly made rests beside her woven basket, carefully coiled exactly as her grandmother showed her. It is uneven. It is imperfect. And it is precious. Years from now, when her hands move with quiet confidence of their own, she may remember that first little strand and smile. Knowledge has always traveled this way. Not through grand speeches. Not through carved monuments. But through gentle hands guiding younger ones. Through patient mornings. Through quiet afternoons. Through evenings shared beneath familiar stars. Outside, the Nile continues flowing. The reeds along its banks sway softly in the cool night breeze. Tomorrow they will greet another sunrise. Some will become baskets. Some will become writing sheets. Some will shelter birds. And some will begin the slow journey toward becoming rope, just as they have for generations beyond memory. The river does not hurry. The wind does not hurry. The stars do not hurry. Neither did the people who learned to shape simple plant fibers into something strong enough to support boats, homes, fields, wells, tools, and everyday life. Their names have mostly disappeared into the quiet passage of time. Yet the rhythm of their work remains easy to imagine. Patient fingers. Steady breathing. Gentle conversation. The soft whisper of fibers twisting together, one careful turn after another. If you were to stand beside that ancient workshop now, long after the voices had faded, you might still imagine the scent of dry flax resting in the air. You might picture neatly coiled ropes waiting upon wooden shelves. You might hear the distant splash of water against a boat tied securely to the shore. You might feel the coolness of evening settling over warm stone. And perhaps, if you listened very carefully, you could almost believe that somewhere beyond the reeds, another quiet day was preparing to begin. For countless generations, life beside the Nile was not defined by great moments alone. It was shaped by ordinary mornings. By careful hands. By shared meals. By worn sandals upon dusty paths. By baskets carried to the river. By bread baking slowly inside clay ovens. By children watching their elders with curious eyes. By small acts of kindness offered without expectation. By work completed not for glory, but because another family, another fisherman, another farmer, or another traveler would quietly depend upon it. Those simple days became years. Those years became generations. And together they gently wove the fabric of a civilization remembered not only for its towering monuments, but also for the countless ordinary people whose patient hands supported every stone, every field, every boat, and every home. Now the village sleeps. The courtyard where rope was twisted from humble plant fibers rests in peaceful silence. The woven mats have been rolled away. The tools wait quietly for another dawn. The finished coils remain safely upon their shelves. Outside, the river continues its endless song beneath the stars. Nothing asks to be hurried. Nothing asks to be louder. Everything simply rests. So let your thoughts drift like the gentle current of the Nile. Let the warm breeze move softly through the reeds. Let the quiet footsteps of those ancient craftsmen fade into the distance. Leave the workshop behind with its calm rhythm, its patient hands, and its simple, honest work. The stars remain overhead. The river continues flowing. The night grows deeper. And, little by little, history itself becomes as quiet as a sleeping village beside the timeless waters of ancient Egypt. Good night. May your rest be as peaceful as the slow Nile beneath a sky full of ancient stars.